Good morning, KarenLoveLee here, the power of self-evolution. Woo! Man, I think that evolving the inner self, the consciousness, dealing with the subconscious mind, and primarily, most importantly, the unconscious mind is our direct laser access to our greatest, most inherent power, inner brilliance, inner genius, and really we can tap into these profound gifts and talents that I believe every human being on the planet possesses to some degree or another. And I really want to address this in myself, and the intention of this particular podcast is to really help human beings understand their own innate magnificence, and I'm going to call it genius, gifts, whatever word you want to use. You have the mojo. You have some special ability that you're passionate about that is almost, inexplicable. And words probably cannot articulate that deep, profound feeling from within where consciously at some level there's something you really, really enjoy and you're really drawn to, and you can't explain the feeling. That's what I talk about. Is this, for instance, mine is my ability to dance. It has been a gift since I was a child. I did not have the mental capacity or wherewithal, the self-esteem, the self-confidence, and self-respect as a child, the self-worth. I didn't have any of that, which was the very thing that stopped me from pursuing something I was so talented at doing and so gifted, if you will. If I look back, I have severe regret of, if only I had a high-level child expert, mental performance advisor, coach, mentor. I could have been and done greater things than I could ever imagine. And I look back and it hurts, but no accident that that's what I do today, because I didn't have it as a child. Never too late. I'm glad that I have it now and have the ability to facilitate in other human beings a genius and extraordinariness by helping them with their mind, body, spirit, performance, capabilities, abilities, and potential. So, that said, we're really going to dig deep and talk about that this morning. And I am here with my dear, dear friend, also a human being who I have formally coached and trained. And we met early on when I first started my journey into deep, profound consciousness, elevating my own consciousness and transforming my inner self for self-love and self-empowerment. And he is such a tremendous contribution to me and to humanity through his gift of listening. And that said, good morning, Dano. Thanks for being here with me this morning.
Well, good morning.
Yeah. So in my introduction there, any insights or feedback as to what I even started out saying?
I think it really stood out when you said severe regret. And a severe regret is not at all generally something that you want to have.
Nope.
I mean, it's not empowering. It's not good to have a severe regret.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be something that psychologically or spiritually gives you energy in general. It's a symptom of negativity.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm listening and I think about this regret thing, and I've talked and podcast about it before, and it shows up again and again in the realm of dancing for me. I have no other regret. I honestly can say my arch nemesis regret is not training more for dance and regretting quitting something that I've been so profoundly gifted at and so passionate about, that is in me, that I can't even explain where it comes from. I became professional with just 2 years of training, late, in my 20s. That's unheard of. And I always thought if I had just started earlier and trained, how much better I could have been, how much more successful I could have been. And it hurts me even right now to talk about, if only. That's the whole if only. Why, the big ethereal, eternal, philosophical question is why wasn't I meant to be this incredible professional dancer and have a long professional dance life and successful dance life? Why was that not in the cards when I had such a profound gift for it and still do? Why? Like, why wasn't it meant to be for me? And then I say, Dan, can you relate to that in any way within yourself and your life?
Well, yeah. Far be it from me to say that I have no regrets. I have regrets until I can relate to that also. It's real easy, in fact, for me to, if I was not intentional about it and allowed myself to really just delve into what do I regret, then there's that's a treasure trove of negativity for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I can relate.
Yeah, and okay, so I'm going to talk about regret is a symptom, and it's a severe symptom of underlying fear and lack of self-esteem and self-worth and self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. And we can say logically, consciously, well, Karen, it wasn't in the cards for you. It wasn't meant to be. It's not your, excuse me, it wasn't your, deepest path in life. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear that right now. Because inside, I hurt. I'm crying. I'm like, why? And then I go through this whole thing of, I, in my mind, want to dance and do all this with my body, and I didn't train enough to be able to do that. And it does feel like, oh, it's too late. And that hurts. And then I think about it, and yet I stand here before you and the listeners, and I'm still teaching dance and still dancing 3 times a week by teaching and volunteering my time to empower the minds, the bodies, the souls, and spirits of human beings through dance, through movement, through just wiggling and jiggling around to music. And I love that, and I stand by it, but I cannot lie, I will not lie that underneath it, I get frustrated with myself, and I regret and wish for the ability to still be able to move and have the endurance to dance and do, quadruple, singtuple pirouettes and leap up in the air like Mikhail Baryshnikov. And the reason I pick him is because as a ballet dancer, for the people who don't know who he was in a movie called White Nights with Gregory Hines, the tap dancer. But Mikhail Baryshnikov have frog legs like me, and people who have quick twitch muscles and frog legs can jump higher and farther than anybody. And his legs are my legs are his legs, but my legs can't jump like his legs, but he trained for years and years and years and years. And I feel like, oh my God, what's the use? It's too late. I got too many other things. I have a life. I have a ranch full of animals. I don't have time to train like that. And I just want to sit in, oh, poor me. I can't do it. It's too late. I don't have the time. I'm past my prime. I'm too old. I'm too out of shape. Like, all these things go through my mind, and I believe it all to be real. And then I think to myself, okay, number one, it's okay to process the feelings and be with it and not resist the regret, not resist the, oh, it's too late, I'm so sad. Let's not regret that. The number one thing we want to do here is allow ourselves, acknowledge our feelings, allow ourselves to emote, to feel the pain of what wasn't, what could have been, what should have been. That is so vitally important, because I know without question I am not the only human being on this planet that has these feelings of woulda, coulda, shoulda, what if, what could have been, if only I had never stopped or quit, if only I started younger, if only I started and had, my big thing now is, if only I had that mental performance coach and mentor and advisor, if only I'd had someone who was an expert and specialist at low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, who could have seen me, understood me, and helped me through the fears of failing, having felt like a loser and a failure, and could have helped me through and understand why I felt so less than, so small, so pathetically inadequate. If only I'd had that, then I would have been somebody doing something that I could, overshadow my regret. If only. And that's hurting me right now. Dan, I hear a little background noise. So that is like, okay, are you twitching around? What's going through your mind right now? What are you hearing?
Well, that's my cat coughing.
Oh.
That you're hearing, but...
It sounds like you actually hitting something. Oh, I'm so sorry.
He's got emphysema. Yeah.
Okay, so then, okay. Oh, okay. Oh.
So that's the end of it, I think. It goes through little periods when he puffs and chuffs and coughs.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, wait. If he's, if you need to attend to him, we don't want to.
No, there's nothing I can do when he's doing that. It just runs its course. I give him his medicine twice a day.
All right. Oh. Okay.
So yeah. So your question is, what am I hearing? And what you're saying, and what I'm hearing is very much that
it's the woulda, coulda, shoulda topic, right? Like, if only.
Yeah, I mean, to live, what I'm hearing is the how really, really sad. I'm hearing sadness.
Yeah.
I'm hearing sadness at a potential that is unrealized.
Exactly.
And that's where the drain of energy exists, and where having regret is what shuts down living in the present and living for the future.
All right, so yeah, blah 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 blah.
Oh, I'm hearing this, and I'm also hearing how very much it wasn't meant to be the way you wish it was.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to cut to, look, the relating to that, like, this is not just about dancing. This is about regretting not starting our own business, regretting not searching for our purpose sooner, regretting getting married and divorced, regretting never getting married, regretting anything in life that never was realized that we wanted to have realized and become our reality, to look back and go, oh my God, I should have, been dating more earlier on. All these, it doesn't matter what, I should have invested. Oh my God, I should have invested. I should have kept my investments in this particular opportunity. And because right now I'm thinking, the one story, I don't know his name, who invested in Apple early on with Steve Jobs, and he came back and asked for his money back. How painful could that be? All the people that said no to Mark Zuckerberg, no, Facebook is stupid, and not having invested or quit being part of his dream team to bring that to fruition. Any regret at all, Dan? So looking into yourself, this is about relating to your own life and your own regrets. But I can just speak from my own experiences of every now and then I go through the regret of woulda, coulda, shoulda, if only, why didn't I? Why were there no mental performance coaches to help me and see me as a child? Because when I was riding horses, I remember my horse show before I went into the ring and failed, that I heard someone go, oh, she's so talented. She's like a prodigy. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that was true about me. I had the drive and the discipline. I had been self-generating and showing up to my horseback riding lessons since the age of 7 on my own, trespassing onto the neighbor's estate. It was a private farm with just a couple of horses, and that's where I learned to ride horses. But I did that all on my own, and yet because of the lack of belief in myself and the ability to endure and persevere through the hardships, through the mental challenges and obstacles, I quit. And that hurts so much. And so I need to deal with it. I can't just pretend, oh, everything's okay, because it's not. So even I had an amazing experience with my girls over at the teenproject.com, where I teach dance and empower these women through movement and connecting to their bodies and full self-expression. And it's primarily hip hop and jazz. Those are my favorites. Of course, the girls love it because they so love the hip hop music and relate to it. And so it's a win-win-win for all of us. And yesterday I taught for 3 hours, and I was like huffing and chuffing. I was like, ugh, this is tiring, because I went in for an hour class, and then the one of the head staff members there said, listen, feel free to extend your time with them, and you have up until noon, which is their lunchtime. And I said, really? And I said, okay, we're just going to dance as long as I can last. The next thing you know, we got caught up in the divine vortex of passion and fun and desire and play. And that 3 hours flew by, but man, my body was hurting. And I wanted to jump up in the air and twirl around and not hurt and not, have to stretch. And it was like, oh my God. And that triggered for me, wow, this sucks. I'm not in my, pinnacle physical shape as I used to be when I was, even teaching fitness classes and aerobics and personal training people in my own personal training business. I was in great shape, although mentally still having a lot of issues, but my body could sure dance and do a bunch of stuff for a long time. So then I go back to that, like woulda, coulda, shoulda. So that, Dan, I don't want to speak about it. Relate it to your own life if you can see anything for yourself here in what I'm saying.
Well, sure. I mean, well, I can certainly relate to my childhood in school. I regret that I had such a very low self-image and self-esteem that I was never a stand for myself as a child at all. And I just had such a small life as a child and was so withdrawn. I regret that.
Yeah.
I regret that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to, looking back, it's easy to say, well, I certainly chose the wrong damn parents. But no, that's not really true. I didn't choose the wrong parents. I had parents that were responsible and did everything they knew to do. And they did love us kids.
In their way, but back to the regret, if you look backwards, you didn't know how to do it. That's the whole point, we didn't know what we didn't know. Nobody, clearly, there I was at my horse show, and nobody was giving me the pep talk. Nobody was like the bench coach like these baseball players have today. There was nobody, helping me with the mental aspect of it. And even when I couldn't get my horse over the jump and I defaulted and I failed in that class, there was nobody to say, oh, okay, so that nobody said anything. And that's what we're talking about. Hashtag never silence your pain. Talk about it. Have somebody you trust and like who actually is an expert or specialist at it. That is the way to go. That's what I'm getting right here, is that's why I do what I do today, because I didn't have it. And yet I'm human, and to share and be able to express myself and say, you know what? The reason why we're talking about this, Dan, is because you went and saw me teaching my girls. We Facebook Lived it, and the girls were sharing their stories. We were dancing. I taught them a new routine. It was very lyrical, and I asked you to watch it. You watched it, and you got triggered into jealousy. I got
triggered into jealousy by the other short video of you doing hip-hop more than...
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, and so I said, what's going on with that? So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was so profoundly courageous to admit, and it so gives us greater insight into the human psyche, because I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm jealous of every professional dancer today dancing, right? And that is training, and their parents are letting them dance at the dance studio, and they're putting it up on YouTube. I'm pissed. That should have been me. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, what I got fairly quickly, I got very uncomfortable that watching and wanted to wanted to go do something else because I realized, thinking about why that was, is because I was so uncomfortable with the fact that my body is not capable of anything like what you can do, and what you were training that Zach,
yeah,
to do a little short hip hop routine,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, even that would have been difficult for me physically.
Yeah,
and I could have done it in some form or fashion. It's some extent, I think, physically. I could have done what he learned,
mm-hmm.
but maybe not, because I haven't ever participated really in dancing. But what I was getting from how I felt in when I chatted with you about this earlier is just how I am genetically not very. My bones are extremely small, long, thin bones, and so are my muscles. And it's just not in the cards for me to have
right
the fast twitch muscle fibers and the explosive strength, and to be able to leap and jump and everything. It was never in the cards for my brothers and I. We don't, and my parents. That it's not in our genetics.
Well,
that feels unfair, and it's not, because it's what is.
Well, you're six. Wait, hold on. Let's let the people know. You're 6 foot what? 6 foot 6'5". Yeah, you're 6'5", and long, thin legs, narrow feet. You're tall.
Extremely thin, long arms and legs.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I looked like, I was an obese child. When I was a kid, I looked like a potato with straws sticking out for legs.
Yeah, and I'm laughing not at you, but with you. I couldn't stand my legs my entire life. I called myself frog legs, and I hated them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though I won all the races, jumped the farthest, won the presidential award year after year as a kid in grammar school. All I wanted was those little toothpick legs, like those Victoria's Secret models, like those skinny bodies and skinny legs, long legs, like Barbie. I wanted those legs, you know? And so interesting how we always want what we don't have, and what we always want opposite of what we, are born with. So I bring that up to say that you don't have the quick twitch muscles. I did, and I still didn't like them. I had to reconcile that in my mind to go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I have frog legs. But they sure jump far and jump high and give me the ability to still hip hop to this day. And I had to really reframe that for myself over and over again and allow myself to accept this is what is. So I can sit here and cry about it and complain about it and be sad about it and regret, or I can reframe it and say, wait, if I didn't have these frog legs, then I would never be able to hip hop then or now.
Yeah.
And the same with you. But it's interesting how we get triggered, and I knew it because I just casually asked you before we started recording the podcast, oh, thanks so much for checking out the video. And then you said, yeah, and I could feel it that there was something else, and I asked you about it, and that's when you came clean, which I so respect, and you said, yeah, I'm a little jealous because I can't do that. And I wasn't built for it, and that's the very thing that I go through. Like, I'm jealous of all the dancers and all the kids who are able to dance and go to dance classes and sustain that. I'm so jealous because I wish I could have had that opportunity and had a mother who would say, you can do it. Just keep going. You're great. Don't worry about the other kids. You just do it because you love it. You're talented. Nothing. And I sit here before you going, wow, why am I still not able to let this go right now? And so I want to get into that right now, Dan, is let's like get to the bottom of it. Like, what's really going on here? So I want to talk to my girls at the Teen Project. These are women 18 years old minimum, up to about 30 years old, but 18 to 24, technically, where they're coming in off the streets, they're homeless. They are in foster care. They come from human trafficking, sex abuse, domestic violence on a daily basis. My one amazing, courageous woman in this video on my Facebook page shares, which I had no idea she was going to share her story so intensely. She was raped at the age of 16, had a daughter. I'm not sure if it was from that rape, but she has a daughter, and she shared that she neglected that daughter and opted for drugs and chose the drugs and the alcohol to cover up and mask the pain that she didn't know she was doing. And then she's now in recovery, and she's able to share that story. So the inspiration comes there. This is so profound that she could share such a tragic story, but it comes with a happy ending. It is a Disney happy ending moment. And to be part of that and watch her dance is amazing. She loves to dance. She's a talented dancer. She's trainable and coachable. And her sharing that story is so inspiring. But underneath it, the humanness is like, wow, I know I'm doing great work. I know I'm making a difference in these women's lives. They're in such gratitude and appreciation. But because I had my own self-hatred, self-esteem, self-confidence, lack of self-worth issues, I underneath it, I get triggered into still believing I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I wish I was even a better dancer. And so I need to be a better dancer, and I want to hang on to the regret because it's much easier to do what's familiar than to overcome it by understanding that I am more than enough and have been more than enough. And it wasn't in the cards for me, just like you were saying, Dan, which was so brilliant. Quick twitch muscles was not in the cards for any of you in your family. And it is in my family. And to just live in that's okay, because if I don't choose the higher road and consciously choose to see all the good and focus on the good, then I'm going to continuously have negative perceptions and views and opinions about myself, and I'll never feel good. Our feelings follow our perceptions, our views, our opinions, what we perceive. And right now, I am perceiving that I am not good enough, and I wasn't good enough to sustain a professional dance career, the very thing I wanted and desired more than anything. And I failed. And I have it that I'm a failure because of that. And that's where the regret gets resurrected in me. And I just don't think I am enough. I'm good enough. And certainly, am I really doing enough to stop the domestic violence, the rapes, the sexual abuse, the human trafficking, the drug abuse, the addiction cycle? And I get in this wicked cycle of self-deprecation and self-loathing because underneath it all, I believe I'm not enough, it's not enough, and I'm not doing enough, and I'm not good enough to make a difference which is really a gross overcompensation for me trying to prove I am enough. So I get out there trying to do more. And it's an empty, vicious cycle going nowhere. Right down the rabbit hole and endless. And that's what perpetuates and feeds into this self-fulfilling prophecy and feeds into victim and martyrdom of never being enough and good enough. And that's an addiction hardwired into my brain that I keep reinforcing and re-ingraining over and over again. Can you see this, Dan?
Sure.
Yeah. And it's hard to get out of the trap. It's hard to get out of this vortex. It has haunted me since I was a child. And what gives me solace and what helps me to not just transform it, but transcend it is to have these conversations and distinguish what's really going on underneath all of the symptoms. And that's what has set me free over and over again, is to allow myself to feel the regret, allow myself to never silence the pain, and to talk about it into somebody who listens and can relate, like you, Dan. That's why I have you on my podcast more than anybody, is because you have witnessed and been the one of the people that I met early on in my journey in transformational classes and seminars, yes, that has witnessed me coming out of my suicide attempt, depression, falling down again, almost losing everything. Homes, ranch, animals. I stopped wanting to pursue my thriving real estate career. You saw me not hit rock bottom, but start to come up from that rock bottom. And so you remember that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Where I was, yeah.
Yeah, you were really, really desperate.
Yep.
You were desperate.
I was fighting for my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So rough.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that I made it.
Yeah.
And you saw me. I mean, do you remember how my energy was, or how I looked to you or occurred to you? Can you remember that? And kind of
sure.
Yeah.
I saw someone who was extremely troubled before I knew that of your suicide attempt.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone who is extremely very intense, and a type A personality.
Understatement, but yes. I'm like quadruple A, but yeah.
Yeah, and also I saw that or in addition to being troubled, I saw a very hard fragility.
Mm-hmm.
Defensiveness.
Anger.
Yeah, anger, yeah.
I was so angry. And I know where that anger came from. Because nobody listened to me in regards to my sister killing herself slowly with drugs, alcohol, and eating disorders to cover up the pain and shame of sexual abuse. And I saw it. This is well before I became a coach. And
yeah,
I just
to point out there, it sounded a little bit like it when you said just to cover up sexual abuse. I want to make clear you meant that your sister suffered.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So here she was covering up the gross pain, the severe pain and shame and isolation of sexual abuse. And she just used alcohol, drugs, eating disorders. Those were her go-to addictions. And it was really just to mask pain. And I explained to the girls yesterday, when we did the Facebook Live class at the Teen Project, that consciously we want to feel good, subconsciously and unconsciously we're just masking pain. And so it's unconscious. We don't even know it. And we keep feeding into this addiction. And I was so angry because nobody listened. She didn't listen, and I knew the answers. But again, there's more regret of, now I don't even have regret about that anymore. I'm every now and then it might get, pinged, but no, I have more regret over my dance career than that, because I've worked so hard to heal that part. But the point is, the anger came from being powerless and nobody listening to me and helping me make a difference and giving my sister the chance to choose to live. Now, I get that I could never had saved her life. That wasn't up to me, but I thought at the time after she died that I should have saved her. I should have rescued her. I should have been the one to be the wind beneath her wings and to have her and breathe life into her. And that is such BS. That's a lie. We can't save or rescue anybody. But what we can do is we can empower them, we can enroll them, we can share our stories and have them relate to us. The one biggest thing that helped me more than anything in my darkest hours was that I had people who said, you know what? #me too. #me too means that I dealt with the same pain that you're dealing with, Karen. I have, felt depressed, and I have considered a mild form of suicide, or if I just, drove off the cliff, that would be okay. And that's what did it for me. Because when you and I met, Dan, in transformational seminars, I won't name names, because what ended up happening was it wasn't a medical facility. They were not set up to deal with depression and suicidal tendencies. The initial classes gave me the will to live, but I had mentioned to one of the staff members that I had been suicidal. She reported it to the course leader, and they released me in my darkest hour. They actually said, you can't come back. We're not set up to help you medically. You need to go handle your depression and suicidal stuff. And so, you have a year and you can come back and take more classes and attend the seminars. And I was devastated. So in my darkest hour of crying, they released me, but I felt kicked out. I felt abandoned. I felt rejected. And they never even referred me to any medical facilities. They just said, go handle it. Can you imagine, Dan, being in your darkest hour and them saying, sorry, we can't help you. You've got to, and a lot of people would not have been able to do what I did. I know that for a fact. Because there are a lot of people that disgrace this organization because of the lack of abilities to help other people. But what we want to get here is the blessing in disguise was the best thing that ever happened to me. But what saved me? And, I could have attempted suicide again because I was so depressed. I was laying in bed for a week, crying. I would not get out of bed. But the one thing I did do, Dan, and you were one of those people, is I called every person I knew that I had met through these seminars in the community, and the friends that I had at the time. I just kept talking to them, and almost 100% of those people just said, yes, #me too. And the reason I say #me too, because right now that's a huge thing, is really in the context of sexual abuse and what's going on. I'm going to get into that in a moment. Currently with Harvey Weinstein and all the sexual predators and perpetrators and all of the victims finally speaking up and speaking out to make a difference and stop this. And so I say, thank goodness, amen. This is like the most beautiful thing that could be happening right now. But the point being, what got me out of bed was being able to share without any judgment, criticism, all these amazing human beings that said, you know what, me too. I have felt depressed. I've thought about suicide at some degree, in some fashion or another. And every time they said that, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Oh my gosh, it's not just me. Oh my gosh, this is not a Karen problem. This is a human condition problem. And I, right now, every day got better and better. And then about that 6th, 7th day, I got up out of bed and I never looked back. And that's why we are here, to share our stories and to share, what I have been through and then what has worked for me. I can only tell you, disclaimer, I share what worked for me, what I went through, and how I was able to get from that bed and crying, depressed, severely depressed, and kicked out of a place that claims to empower and transform people, to where I am today, to being an extremely high level, elite mental performance, mind, body, spirit specialist in the realm of consciousness and mental performance. And I would not have it any other way. And Dan, again, you were one of those people that I had supporting me as a friend at that time. As later you became a former client that I coached you formally. But do you remember that?
Oh, sure.
That was scary.
Well, how could I not?
I know.
How could I not remember that?
Yeah, that was so scary. And then from that point, in that next year, what I did was I had figured it all out. But that hardship hitting bottom even more, it actually gave me I kicked into something, and it had me go, wait a minute, I got this. That support healed that aloneness that I felt like I'm alone and isolated, and nobody understands me, nobody sees me, nobody gets me, nobody knows my pain and what I'm going through. That was not the case. Is that people understood and were empathetic and compassionate to what I was going through. They actually felt the pain. And that, I believe, is a source of everything in terms of transforming our lives and really claiming our self-love, our self-sparkle, our self-worth, and our self-respect. And to have my beautiful Candace share about the rape and where she is today, and seeing her dance so beautifully with her beautiful, beautiful smile, I just think, wow, I was floored by her sharing that, and so thrilled and thankful that she did, because that's what I believe makes a difference for anybody who can relate to what we go through. And it's really about self-hatred. Then I had another beautiful woman who just showed up to the Teen Project to recover. She joined right into dance class, and she talked about hating herself. She talked about being a bigger woman and that the smaller girls intimidated her. Her ability to share that, again, blew me away. And I will tell you the truth. Isn't this interesting, Dan? That I did a lyrical thing. She picked up faster and better than any of the other girls in class. And yet she had she spoke of her self-hatred, which was me. So this is where I want to talk about, we have perceptions about ourselves that become beliefs and then become hardwired into our neuronal patterning in our brain. And she comes from self-hatred because she felt that she was too big and not good enough. And yet...
She said something about being. She didn't use the word unattractive, but she said something about feeling unattractive, or the least attractive of all the other girls.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And yet she picked up the fastest and she had the most lyrical dance abilities.
Yeah.
Out of all the girls. Right? And I saw it. I can see it. She picked it up. She also had like heels on. She was dancing in her heels, but then she finally took her shoes off to really get into it. And isn't that ironic? This is how our brain tricks us. Her beliefs and perceptions. Well, first of all, it's her perceptions, her views, her point of view, then become her beliefs, and she thinks it's real. So she's thinking that because she's weighs a certain amount of pounds and is bigger, so she's, bigger and heavier, she is perceiving that she's not attractive enough and not good enough and not fit or thin enough, which I can relate to. All those things are certainly have been my problem, my perceptions of myself. Oh, and I can tell you I was ugly and I hated being Chinese, Asian, and the only one growing up, especially in my high school. I hated how I looked. Ugly. I felt ugly. And so, but this woman, the brain then clings on to those perceptions and they become our belief systems, our inherent beliefs. And yet the disconnect, this is what saved my life, is understanding why we disconnect. So her opinions about herself completely contradicted her natural ability to dance. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I sure did.
Uh-huh. And you saw the video.
I did.
Yep. She was the one closest to the camera. She looked at herself and she thought the girls wanted to see themselves. And she was even saying to herself while she was watching the video that she looked the worst. And I nudged her and I said, no, you were actually the most talented and you're the one who had the best timing. And I had to be careful because I didn't want the other girls to feel less than. But I'll tell you right now that she actually had the best timing and the best lyrical ability, especially since she has never met me nor taken my class ever before. She has natural talent above the other girls right off the bat. The only concern I'd have with her is her ability to love herself enough and love herself not just enough, but unconditionally, and keep showing up to dance, because she absolutely was the most naturally gifted dancer in class yesterday. And yet she felt, and that had been me my whole life. I always felt like the worst, the ugliest, the fattest, and the most of a failure. And yet I often was the best.
I'd like to add something to that.
Yeah, please do.
I think when I was watching that video on Facebook Live, I gotta acknowledge you. That was very, what you taught those ladies was very complex. Mm-hmm. Extremely complex. I have this tiny, limited experience with trying to learn some very simple, what do you call it? The person who programs or writes a dance. What's that called? A choreography.
Oh, yeah, right. A choreographer, yes.
So I briefly was trying to fit in and learn some very, very simple choreography. And I found it extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was very simple, but what you taught them was extremely complex and very subtle. A lot of it was very subtle and involved the entire body in very complex moves. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was blown away that they were able to pick up on that and largely do what you were doing, because I watched you when you got with them and it was only about maybe 20 seconds of choreography. Mm-hmm. And there were at least 100 separate movements in my.
You're exactly right.
In my guesstimation, I mean, it was very complex.
Yes,
and, you're right that the what was I can't remember her name, the lady who was you were just talking about.
Yeah, Candace.
She was doing a lot of the subtleties she was picking up on.
Yes.
Very well.
Oh yeah.
And the expressiveness that you were putting into it, she was picking up on that.
She was the best in the class at it.
Yeah.
But she also, the disconnect is her beliefs were saying, I hated myself, I'm not good enough, I'm the worst dancer. She actually said that off camera while the girls were watching themselves, right? They wanted to watch themselves after I posted the Facebook Live.
Sure.
And yet she was the best one.
Right.
So that, you don't need to be the best. What we need to get here, and this happens to me every single day of my life that I work on, and why I do the work that I do that is so highly effective, it's mind-blowing, is we have to bridge the gap. We have to reconcile our perceptions, our negative, disempowering perceptions versus what is in reality. So I sit here and go, oh, I'm not good enough. I regret my dance career. And yet I'm still dancing to this day and killing it, right? And so there's a huge disconnect here. So it becomes a blind spot. I can't see that I'm still dancing 3 times a week where most people will never come back. And I stopped dancing for 8 years after my sister died. 8 years off. Most people will never go back. Most people don't go back to the gym after 3 months. That's how gyms stay in business. That is an actual statistic. So, this beautiful woman saying, I'm the worst, when in fact she was the best, this is why people get depressed and want to not live anymore, is because they can't bridge the gap. They can't fill it in and make sense of their perceptions. And then because they're in fear and those perceptions are triggering their fear of not being good enough, it cancels out our ability to be logical and rational, and we cannot see. We become blind to the reality that, oh my God, we're actually way better than we think we are or believe we are. That's what this is about, Dan, and I'm so glad we did this morning because it's helping me. Is it helping you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, any time that I can get present to just how the natural wiring of my human brain is generally going to have a perception that does not help me.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's the case. The natural wiring of my human brain generally has perceptions that are built in because of my beliefs from early childhood that do not help me. They hold me down and make me believe things that are limiting and even completely ridiculous and untrue and baseless.
Exactly.
And it's only through this journey that I've been on since just before I met you. Mm-hmm. that I know that and comprehend that and have come to own that that's reality. Mm-hmm. That I'm still breathing, I think, at this point in my life, because I was pretty depressed for most of my adult life, most of my childhood too.
Yes. But
you got to realize, or I have to realize that this is the reality. Mm-hmm. That we can't see what we can't see. We don't know what we don't know. And that leads to our brain coming to conclusions that are fantasies to fill in so we can survive and keep going and do what we think we're supposed to do. And this lady is such a good illustration of that. She was looking at the video of herself, and what she was seeing was what her brain had her programmed to see, which is, oh my God, I'm the biggest one, and I'm the one who's doing it the worst because I'm the biggest and heaviest, and that means I'm not as good as these other ladies. And the reality is, she was the best one.
Yep.
But she was looking right at the same view that I saw, and she saw the opposite.
Yeah, and I posted a video of me when I started to train again after the 8 years of being off. I saw a video, and the first time I watched it, I said, oh my God, I look so bad dancing. Right? I look so bad. And then I watched it like 3 times, and I said, wait a minute. Because as I did the write-up and posted on my YouTube channel, KarenLoveLee TV, right? YouTube, KarenLoveLee. I watched it, and then as I was writing, I said, wait a minute. Because I had to say, how long had I taken off from dance? 8 years, right? 8 years, 10 years before I started teaching. So I started to take some dance classes again after 8 years of being off, and then it all of a sudden hit me. Karen, you were focusing on how awkward you looked, how stiff you looked, and you had not been dancing at all, went through major suicide depression in your healing, and all I could see was, oh God, I look really bad. But when I wrote 8 years, it all of a sudden occurred to me, oh, Karen, first of all, you couldn't even move just 5-6 years ago. You actually, going through my recovery, it got worse before it got better. It's always darkest before the dawn. My body shut down. I had severe fibromyalgia, celiac disease, chronic fatigue. I was asked to dance in a show with a friend of mine who was my teacher, and I went to rehearsal and I couldn't move. And I said, I can't do this. I had to quit again, and I couldn't do the show. And I was so depressed. My body could not move. I mean, I literally sat on the floor, and I was so riddled in pain that I couldn't move. And that triggered in my mind that experience. And I watched the video, and I said, oh my God, it's virtually a miracle that I was dancing again with the dance teacher in better shape than my teacher. And many people had asked me, oh, are you the teacher? Are you the teacher? Are you the teacher? And I could not see it. It was all blind to me. I was only focusing on how bad I looked. That canceled out my ability to be rational and logical, to go, Karen, you're crazy. You are a freaking idiot if you can only see the negative here. You're in the best shape you've ever been, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You look great in the video. You're wearing your dance leggings. You're moving, which was impossible. And you're dancing again after all these years, and you almost quit for the rest of your life. And then I turned around my perceptions. I reframed my perceptions, and then I was really proud of myself. And I posted the video, right? And people can watch that video. You haven't even seen it, Dan, of me practicing again and retraining after years, 8 years, and now I'm teaching again. And so that's unheard of. So that's what we have to do. The bottom line is, this is what we have to do, is to understand how our brain tricks us against ourselves, because it focuses on the negative, which is a default mechanism for survival, by the way, and it can't see anything positive. The minute we focus on the negative, it's impossible for the brain to actually see anything positive, because the human brain can only compute a single thought at 1/10 of a second at a time. So if you're in negativity, you cannot go to positivity unless consciously you go, wait, I'm in negativity. You have to recognize you're in negativity, and then you got to go consciously. You have to say, wait, I know that if I'm in negativity, it's impossible for me to click over to positivity, and I must reframe my perceptions for good and not evil, and that'll do it. That's the quick tip here, people, is that'll do it. And we got to practice that over and over and over again. And we do need to talk about it. We do need to share. And more people today are sharing their sexual abuse. #MeToo. #MeToo. I fall in there. I fall in almost being sexually abused by my brother's friend, and I was able to say no. Thank God, right? And there have been other disempowering sexual experiences that I have gone through. I'm going to do a whole podcast series on this sexuality thing, and I'm not just going to talk about the negative. Oh, we're going to talk about the positive, the positivity, and what people are missing sexually when they are disempowered in the realm of sexuality and their sexuality. So I don't want to get too far off tangent here, but I have to address the disconnect and why the sexual abuse is finally coming out in the open, and so many people are finally no longer ashamed to speak up. And I just saw an article about how men are talking about their sexual disempowering experiences, and many men have shared with me their sexual abuse, and that is what makes a difference, that we are not alone. #MeToo, and that is finally bringing us humans together to stand for healthy sexuality and to stand against sexual abuse, especially high-powered men abusing women. So that's the big thing here, but it's coming out all over the place. We're talking Kevin Spacey, sexual abuse. And I know for a fact, because I had an ex-boyfriend who worked at a very high-end restaurant who often saw Kevin Spacey in that restaurant. And he told me about this years ago. He was in that restaurant with boys that were underage, and I have known this for a long, long time, but it's just now that it's coming into light, and he's being heavily criticized for the way he's handling this. But the good news is people are coming out with their sexual abuse and holding the perpetrators and the predators accountable, and I couldn't be more happy, and thank goodness I have all this on my side, because I often have been talking about incest. Dan, when I met you, I talked about incest. That was back in 2009, yes?
Yes.
And people were not talking about it. Even today, people look at me cross-eyed when I bring up sexual abuse and human trafficking. They just are stunned. They don't even know what to say. And all the times, the stories that I have about domestic violence and the people that are surviving it, but persevering their circumstance of severe domestic violence and sexual abuse, right? So thank God we can talk about it. I'm going to continue talking about it. It makes people very uncomfortable. But ask me if I care, Dan. Go ahead, ask me.
Do you care?
No, baby, I do not care. And if you try to mess with Lakeisha, you're gonna get in trouble, okay? I am gonna kick you to the curb. Oh no.
Yeah,
this is
the more people that that actually have that topic of conversation, the more people will be able to have that conversation.
Yeah, and we're having it now. And it's right now. And keep going, people. Keep going. Keep sharing. There's no shame here. There's only power to be able to say, yeah, I get it. Because I do believe every human being on this earth will have some minor to major sexually disempowering experience. And we are sexual beings. So, you know, there are ways to transform it. There are ways to transcend it, and it's not a big deal. # not a big deal. It is and it's not, but I'm saying it matters, but we don't have to let it take us down and feed into our own self-sabotaging, self-fulfilling prophecy wheels is what I call that. It doesn't have to keep us down unconsciously and invisibly, because it will unless we deal with it. So I want to say, with all this sexual abuse and what's going on, this has everything to do with the disempowering beliefs from early childhood that these perpetrators and predators have experienced, and they're just acting out. They're trying to mask their own inner pain by overcompensating, and it shows up, guess what, as sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And the more we can understand it and deal with what's underneath it all, I'm not justifying their behavior, no way. I'm a stand against it. And I'm a stand and committed to bringing healthy sexuality to humanity. Okay, that's really what this is about. However, I'm telling all of you that by understanding the psychodynamics of why this occurs, where it comes from, and how to heal it, then we've got something. We've got something of magnitude, and we've got something of lusciousness. And we have something that could empower us in the face of it all. That's what I'm talking about. So it's sexual abuse. We want to say hurt people hurt. If there is sexual abuse involved, because there was, there's a fine line between victim and perpetrator, that this doesn't come from nowhere. Sexual abuse doesn't just show up, I absolutely believe that there is sexual disempowerment early on in the perpetrator's background that has gone rogue, but it has just it's been suppressed and repressed, and it has not been dealt with. And what happens is it just keeps brewing and brewing and brewing. We don't know it's there, and then we have to go overcompensate and try to fix it or mask the pain by doing the very behavior that started the disempowerment from the first place. Wow, this is so super deep. We'll get into it in future podcasts, but what I want to get across here is that the power lies in understanding, and I say the power lies versus paralyze. So we will be paralyzed if we don't deal with this and understand it. Point blank, that's what I absolutely believe, because I've lived it and I coach it, and my methods work and they're highly effective. But I can only speak from my own case studies, my own experience. So the power lies in the understanding of it all, and the removing of all the symptoms of shame, blame, criticism, and judgment. And together we can rise. Together we can overcome this. Together we can heal this. And it certainly comes down to very simple # self-love, self-respect. And so that said, Dan, comments, feedbacks, what are you hearing? Did I miss something? Did I cover it all as much as I could before we end our podcast today?
Well,
I know. That was a lot. Woo!
Yeah, you're asking me to comment after about, a couple thousand words there. But, yeah, I mean, there's always room to open a conversation, to be vulnerable and open a conversation, and there's room to do that, because that's the way that we have eventually get access to what we don't know. So that's where I'm seeing the linkage here, that there's such a screaming need that people have, usually not even expressed.
Yeah.
To be able to really share with someone else, to be able to see what's really going on with them.
Yep.
And that's what you've been doing.
Yep.
or however long that we've been on this podcast. That's what you've been doing. So people, that's what Karen has been doing with me on this, on this podcast.
Yeah.
And that's where the power of uncovering what's hidden from view and having and learning how to get self-awareness, how that gives us power, is in the expression, the vulnerability that Karen has shown, that you have shown, Karen, is amazing.
Thank you.
People don't generally develop the power that you have to be vulnerable. We men especially tend to be very closed and self-protective and not want to deal with their emotional life. And they're supposed to be strong and silent. I'm a child of the 1950s myself. And it was certainly John Wayne and strong and silent and blah, blah, blah was the ethos, of that time.
Right.
And certainly that can serve in some cases in life, but guess what? It leads to having all of these beliefs from childhood, which is where most of our beliefs are formed.
No, all of them, Dan, all of them, which I've taught you over and over again, but thank you for bringing that up. Yes, all of them. So
that's where they're formed. And I got to say that since that's the case, this disempowering aspect of that can't be overstated, because as children we don't have complete development, and so we believe stuff that's just insane. We make conclusions, emotional conclusions as children that are ridiculous.
Yes.
And then that becomes our belief system underneath in our unconscious. And that's what happened to me. That's what happened to you. That's what happens to everybody in various ways.
Exactly.
So this whole thing about the sexual expression being so harmful in society, with the abuse and all of the different aspects of that's all stuff that, unfortunately, what you were just describing, how that comes to be, because we won't deal with anything in our emotional lives that we're programmed to believe about ourselves.
Okay, so let me just cut you off right here, because I just got to wrap it up, right? Because time is of the essence.
I don't want to try to speak another 2,000 words either.
Yeah, well, and it's not your expertise, so let me just, interject with, and thank you for your wonderful insights always. I mean, again, that's why you're here. But look, it's always about our childhood, and that's what worked for me, by understanding and healing all those broken wounds, the brokenness and the wounds, the disempowering beliefs I had about myself. So we can say that is the case, right? And it does matter. Our past matters, because the human brain is designed to hang on to our past for survival purposes. Only consciousness can override that. Only consciousness can override it. Otherwise, it's predictable, and it's by default, and it's automatic. So if we are disempowered from childhood early on, it's just automatic unless we override it with our consciousness. So that's what we want you to get here. But we got to wrap this up in terms of, look, this became a conversation about regretting not becoming a magnificently, hugely successful dancer and leaving a legacy. Well, you know what, Karen? That you're still dancing. Dance for yourself, your soul. Practice what you preach and teach. And that is, it's okay to be sad that I didn't have this profoundly, insanely magnificent dance career and offshoots of what that could have been and I can sit here and regret it, and I can sit here and be angry about it and sad about it, or I can reframe my perceptions to say, wow, let's really think about this now that we've addressed it. Is that really what I want to do today? People think that I have a dance studio today. They're like, where else are you teaching? Where's your dance studio? Oh no, I will have a dance studio. And it will be it will be a nonprofit organization to empower people emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally through dance and movement, right? It has a purpose now, but that's just a side thing. Is that what, if I could just look backwards for a moment, would I want to be doing that today? No, my passion is the mental performance aspect. My obsession, my burning desire is the human psyche, and to understand all of this and how to rewire ourselves and set ourselves free of disempowering addiction. And that's where I choose to live today. The dance is just icing on the cake and a bonus. And I also get that at any point in time, I can go back and train for myself. Would I want to be a professional dancer today? No, I don't care. All I want is my ability to keep dancing for the rest of my life and get to the highest level for myself and my soul with nothing to prove. So I can see that, shut up and dance, put up or shut up, so I can just go take more dance classes, even hire coaches, which I will, private teachers, and just keep dancing for myself and be able to dance because I can, and I don't have to ever show anybody or do it in front of a camera, that I could just do it for myself because I see that the regret is just a symptom of something deeper. And that something deeper is I got triggered into not being good enough. And I've been really dealing with, am I doing enough for the world in light of all the sexual abuse that is coming out and all the predators that are finally being held accountable? That's why this has been hard for me, because it's triggering, oh my God, I'm going to the negative. We're not doing enough. We got to stop this. No. I am doing it one person at a time, and I have to be willing to acknowledge myself, whether anyone ever does, for the work that I'm already doing, and to keep going and to keep having fun and to keep being a contribution and to keep having more fun, and make sure that I'm filling my cup and that my soul and spirit are in harmony, and that I am feeling good about myself first and foremost, that I'm reconnecting to my own self-power, my own self-worth, my own self-love and self-respect. And as my cup is full and running overeth, I can help others and keep going, but I cannot be of service to my best abilities if I feel like underneath it all, I'm a loser. And I have to deal with that and go, oh, okay, you know what, Karen? You can believe you're a loser, or you can let that go. Stop fearing that you're a loser and believing you're a loser. Allow yourself to feel the feelings, but then as that disappears and dissipates, then I can actually come back to reality and look at my life rationally and logically and see, oh, wow, Karen, you know what? You just volunteering your time, not getting paid, and helping these women is more than enough. And you can do it, but if you're going to do it at the expense of becoming a victim and a martyr, then you really need to question that. I do a self-check. You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, Ice Cube. Okay? And that's what I'm doing right here, right now, and going, wow, you know what? I'm going to stop beating myself up. I'm going to stop abusing myself and go, okay, you know what? It's way enough. I'm more than enough. I'm doing beyond enough, and let it just be that. And so, Dan, what are you hearing here?
Yeah, well, the last couple or three sentences are very powerful, because there you are, able to transcend and transform what you started out with here.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is that I'm no good,
I suck.
Could have, should have, would have.
Exactly.
And all of that regret.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the one in charge. You have transformed and transcended, or first transcended and then transformed, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
That fantasy belief system that there's only room for regret here. No, there's no room for regret.
Mm-hmm.
There is no room for regret, and so that's where I see this whole thing wrapping up. There's no room for regret.
Well, it disappears as I reframe my perceptions. That's what we got to get. It disappears and it becomes vapor, as I call it, when I understand, oh, okay, I can regret woulda, coulda, shoulda, but is that what I want to be doing with my life now? I want to be dancing for myself. I will continue to teach, and I'm going to have all my recovering addicts on my dance team, my Dance Angel team, and I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to keep going, thrive, hire my private dance teachers, and just dance for myself and go back to training, and it'll be that, because the truth of the matter is, no, I don't want to be this professional dancer today and only have that. That's on the side, and that's for my own soul. I love being who I'm being and having a purpose of rewiring the subconscious, unconscious mind so that we can become unconsciously proficient in the realm of owning our radical gifts and magnificence. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And then the dance thing, yeah, it's there. But I'm not going to fixate on it and attach myself to it as defining me and my life as being enough.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. If you hear a little whimpering in the back, that's my baby. That's my little baby I rescued off the streets, crying. She's up, and she jumps off my bed, and here she is. So, Dan, I want to thank you for joining me today. I feel so much better having this conversation and knowing that the things that we touched on today can make a difference for people. I can feel it. And these girls are hugely impacting other human beings by sharing who they are and their magnificence and their gifts and their trials and tribulations. I'm onto something. I can feel it right now as we speak. And for anyone who's interested in my elite mental performance, mind, body, spirit coaching, my private coaching, you can email me at KarenLoveLee at Gmail, KarenLovelee at gmail.com. Contact me, message me on Facebook, stay connected, follow me, watch Zach and I do our hip hop from the park so that you can learn how to hip hop, empowering men through dance. And that is Tuesdays, 7 a.m. Pacific, Facebook Live. I'd love to hear from you, feedback, comments. Anyone who's interested in a complimentary 30-minute consultation with me for private coaching, you would put that in the subject line, email me, and we can go from there. I want to thank everybody for listening. I really can't express enough the power of self-evolution for owning your genius and all of your gifts and talents and sharing that, if you choose to, with the world, and everybody wins. So, Dan, thank you. Thank you for your brilliance, your genius, for your feedback and insights, and sharing and being vulnerable within your own right to help and empower me, all other human beings, and men. This is a big deal. Men, talk about it. Men, keep sharing. Men, never silence your pain. And we're here for you. Thank you all. And until next time, may your life be full of real dreams come true and that you are the source of all of those dreams coming true. It starts from within, and to love and respect yourself is where the magic stems from. With that, I love you all. Thank you so much. And until next time, woo! Hashtag shut up and dance.